Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Today we're going to be doing a track mark analysis of the location, as in recent time Mob Crew brought it up in a recent discussion video, okay, as they were the ones responsible for coming across it in the first place. Bit more context later on. Today I want to give my opinion on it, as well as provide a possible explanation with the use of Google Earth and possible theories that could tie on and complete maybe the missing blank spots within the overall case, okay? Now, off subject, one individual, I think it was Chrissy, mentioned that she wanted some pigs to appear in the video. I had a couple of them previously, but they don't seem to be around anymore. I guess they ran off, makes sense. But I do have some other ones. So this one here, the lip does move slightly and it is quite soft and squidgy. And then we bring out the big boy. This guy here looks slightly more rough and worn down, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And yeah, on the bouncy, not really. Where do I put him? I'm not gonna put him down now because one, it won't fit and it will look somewhat inappropriate. And it'll be slanted. We don't want that. We want symmetry. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you the pictures, or at least a picture of the track marks, and then we'll go from there, okay? So on screen is a still screenshot from the drone footage by Mob Crew, so credit to them. I don't know if I already said it beforehand, but this was all done on the 6th of June. Okay, so it's not too long after Dylan was reported missing. So that's interesting because, as you know, I didn't join in covering the mystery to begin with. I was like a month late, so it's good to look back and check the dates of stuff. So hopefully you can make it out on screen. If it's not clear enough, what I will do is I'll use the magnifying glass, okay? So if I just drag the magnifying glass over the ground, you might be able to see some pattern emerge on both sides. Let's try and widen it a little bit so you can see. Hopefully that shows a little bit more clearer. You can see where it looks a bit bumpy and where the ground's been disturbed. You should be able to see the track mark. If not, I'll try and further enhance the image shortly. That might help you see. But you've got a track mark on each side. The width of it is, well, I guess average, doesn't look too bad. But the marking, that's the important part. What caused that? I don't know how hard the ground is in this area. If it's compact like how it is at Dylan's place, then it must be some kind of heavy machinery to make those imprints and to ensure that they remain there, right? Because, just a brief question in the chat, people are saying it rained, whether it be on the day Dylan went missing or just shortly afterwards or shortly beforehand, so it could have washed away evidence or footprints and so on. You know, were these track marks before it rained or after it rained? What do you think? I mean, if the track marks are heavy and deep and they leave a mark behind, the rain probably isn't going to wash it away in comparison to like if you had a light vehicle or someone simply walking across the ground leaving little indentations, right? Worth a thought. But yeah, another key point mentioned by the Mob Crew is the track marks are continuous. They go on and remain the same in terms of the pattern produced. They look fairly linear as well. In addition, the location of this, which I will share with you on Google Earth shortly, is within a wash. Okay, so that's worth taking into mind. And one of the points mentioned by Mob Crew is it could be some kind of excavator that has caused it, or an ATV, some kind of quad bike, etc. I have an idea myself, and I'll try and reinforce that within the map analysis, okay? Let me just further enhance this image on screen just so you can have a better view of it. Right, so I think we're in frame, and I'll just begin, I guess, altering some of the settings. Okay, exposure doesn't seem to do too much. You can leave your thoughts in the chat as I go along editing the image, okay? What do you think it is? Is it natural? Not? What would have caused it? You know, was it before or after Dylan's disappearance? And like, what vehicle do you think caused the markings and so on? The brilliance doesn't really seem to do too much. As said, when it comes to enhancing images or making it slightly clearer, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, okay? I'll be honest. Maybe the sharpening tool might help. Do you know what? We need to make certain patches appear a bit darker just so the indentations and the shadowing can stand out more. You see what I'm saying? Yep, there we go. We're getting there slightly. You see how it makes the image a little bit sharper as well? Right, hopefully you can make it out a little bit better. What's that, the black point? Okay, leave it there. Saturation. I mean, saying it black and white can help in a way, but we'll leave the colours as they are because that doesn't really help too much. The tint, the sharpness. I mean, the sharpness kind of works, but the problem is it makes everything else sharp as well, which doesn't. Okay, set to that. Definition, make it a little bit more defined. It's one of those things where you see part of it. I don't know how far it goes, the actual tracks. You know, you'd expect it to keep going on and on. I don't know if this is facing north, east, south or west, from this angle at least. Right. Vignette. Is vignette a good idea? It doesn't really do too much. Okay, let's just leave it like that. So, does that show any better? I think it does, in my opinion. From the looks of it, that seems to be a dirt path. I might be wrong, but it looks like a dirt path. And it goes off round the bend to the left, and that's when the tracks emerge on both sides. You follow it along. It goes through this black vegetation. To be fair, you can actually make out the track mark going through it. It's flattened the vegetation down the middle of it. You might be able to see. Hopefully you can. I can. So there's definitely a bit of weight behind the vehicle that was used to flatten it and to keep it flattened. Okay? And then I think it bends around slightly and then goes up that way at an angle. So that is interesting. Do we have any comparison pictures? Like, let me go back one. You remember this one? Completely different because one is most likely caused by a human, the other by a vehicle. But I'm talking about the ground itself. In this area, it looks fairly flat, doesn't it? Kind of hard, especially when dry. A person walking across it, there'd probably be no footprints around, although there was, or there is, on this photo, as you can see there. And as well, some more back that way on the side, I think there, because some people said there were footprints near the wheels. Now, if the ground has been wettened, is that a word? If the ground has become wet and moist, you know, you walk across that, you might sink in a little. You create a little indentation based on the weight of yourself. I mean, if you're a light person, you're less likely to leave a mark, I guess. So with that in mind, the ground hardness, whether it's wet or not, you can take those factors and apply it to a situation and an area like this, which is off-road, which could be hardened,
I don't know if compacted though. Depends how often things go through this area. Now, as for a wash, I'll be honest, I have not searched the definition of a wash. Is it a place where water collects at times? If it rains, if there's a bit of flooding, does water pass through the area? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to refer back to the word being used in the past with Kenny Veach and the Mojave Desert, the wash. How during certain seasons with rain, it would wash things away, literally, move things, disperse stuff. So is that why it is? Kind of like a river, but dried up most of the time. Correct me if I'm wrong. I won't know because I've not searched the definition of it, nor am I in an area or an environment which has a wash, okay? Whoa, what was that bird flying past? Anyway, so you can leave your thoughts down below. My opinion up to now is it's definitely something heavy to cause those track marks and to ensure that they remain there. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I think it could be an excavator. And the reason why, I'll explain on Google Earth right now. So here we are on Dylan's land, Google Earth. Once again, there's the grain shed here. The coordinates bottom right corner of the screen, if you ever wish to search for them yourself. But where are the track marks? Where are they? Well, Mob Crew explained, so credit to them. I placed a marker roughly in this area because this is where it is, okay? Now, just another additional marker. Supposedly, a water hole is located up here. I can't quite see where the hole is, but it's supposedly here from what other people have said. Hang on a minute. Is that the water hole? Or is that something else? I might be getting mixed up, but yeah, around this area. I know people are saying about there was disputes about the water within the area. I heard some other comments where people were saying there's no proper fresh, clean water, and the water that is available is very salty and not exactly usable or drinkable. So just a few little extra points. There's also theories and things put forward about the water hole, the water usage, restrictions, limitations by certain people, so that caused tension, arguments, maybe between Jim, between Dylan, somebody else, and so on. Just loose points I'm bringing up because I've overheard them here and there. If you can provide better context behind them, if you wish to, feel free to leave a comment down below or in the chat itself. Let me know your thoughts about this whole thing. So, referring back to the track marks and the location of them, they were described as above the grain shed. So, you've got the grain shed here, just above this area, which looks like there's a bit of a, what do you call it, in between the dirt road there and this brown stuff here. I wonder if I can flip the image. There we go, we get a better angle of it. So you've got the dirt road on the left, and then right on the other side, you've got the railway tracks. Okay, so that's interesting, that. There's a fair bit of distance in between the two. I'm just also checking to see if anything else stands out in between, okay? I'm also trying to see if I could match up the path with the tracks from that drone footage. I don't think I can do that at this moment in time. Now, obviously, this won't be up to date, okay? It won't be up to date. You're not going to see the track marks from this distance looking down at it because the image quality is limited and the timing is relevant. But I do believe this is the wash. This bit here. That little white bit there to that side bit. The reason why I say it is because you can see the depth. You know that black line, or what appears to be a black line? That's the shadowing, because it, you know, like drops down, it goes in slightly. There's a bit of an overhang, if you want to call it that, okay? And recently, one guy who provided coordinates to a different location of a wash shared the same characteristics visually as this. So that helps me understand where I'm at, okay? Just a personal reflection, if you want to call it that. So if you've got this wash area, does this tie in with the water hole, or is that a separate thing? It does run parallel to this dirt road here. Now, is that the one that goes to his farm? Yes, it is. Interesting. And then you got that land in between the wash and the dirt road. Okay. I've not really focused much in this area, to be honest, so it gives a different perspective, I guess. Waterhole over that way. Okay, so it does bend round. I just want to see where it goes to, okay? Feel free to carry on discussing things and thoughts. I just wanted to know, how far does it go, or where does it stop? Okay, so this looks like a dirt road right here. It drops down. Does anyone know if this area becomes flooded? Like, because it drops down, does this road become inaccessible at times when there's a storm or when it does rain quite heavy? Is that possible? I mean, with all the different alternative routes and pathways, dirt roads, I guess if one was closed, you've always got another option. So, okay, that's interesting now, get an idea. Now, from when I was looking at the image of the mob crew, it was within the wash, but it was almost like off a turning point or something, which may have been off the dirt road. I might be wrong. Precise coordinates weren't given, okay? So that's why I'm guessing. But this is the wash area, so it's somewhere within this spot. And, you know, the question, what we've got to ask ourselves, aside from what caused it, is why is it in this area? Why did it go through this part of the land? Okay? And where did it come from? And where was it going? Important questions. Just try and flip the image a little bit. Okay. And there's Grain Shed. So one point put forwards by mob crew was the digger, the excavator, the ATV, whatever it is, driving through the wash and approaching and moving on to the grain shed to dig something up or to, you know, hide something, bury it. Okay? Kind of interesting in a way. But I don't know why, if anything dodgy was going on, why you would go to the grain shed to, you know, dig something, right? It seemed like a bit too obvious. But then again, it depends who's responsible or who the suspect is. If they're reckless and careless, they're probably not going to think. If the current investigations are still ongoing at the grain shed, aside from Dylan's personal living space 5 miles away, then maybe they might have found something which is tied to these track marks. Now, key point to make forward. Mob crew, the guy in the video, did say that he's reported it to certain authorities or the search and rescue, something of authority. So that's underway. I guess we'll get an update at a later point. So that's good what they've done. That might help fill in the blanks. Now, I'm going to step in right now and fill in potential blanks and possible explanations to what caused the tracks. Then I'll move on to the theories of where and when it was coming from, okay? So if we zoom out for a second, okay? So you've got the grain shed there near that purple marker. You've got the wash where the yellow marker is. If we was to go further north, I'll zoom out a bit, you see that blue marker up there, container. I previously covered that in a past video when talking about possible search locations, and I was like saying, you know, when you got a container like this, could Dylan be hidden in there? Or is it just simply a container for storing equipment? What type of equipment? A quad bike? A buggy? An ATV? Who knows? But the most important thing is a specific vehicle that is found up this way, which ties in with what the mob crew suggested and what I think as well in terms of the track marks. An excavator, some kind of digger. And look what shows up near to a mine shaft or a mine. Digger. Zoom in a bit more. That looks like a digger. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me down below. You got the long arm of it with a scoop at the end. The actual width of the digger and the tracks isn't too wide apart. It's not a massive one, okay? So it could tie in line with the track width, the track type and imprint as what you saw in the wash. It's not too far away from the wash, and I can even, you know, measure the distance in a way in terms of practicality, because, you know, we've got to consider this. There's vehicles scattered around all over the place on Dylan's farmland. You know, I thought, oh, does this vehicle belong to here and it doesn't go anywhere else? And I've been wrong, such as maybe the grain truck, you know, or it been at the grain shed, but it might have been parked at Dylan's trailer at some point, and so on with other equipment. So it's understanding the distance, the practicality, the fuel, the gas usage, consumption, and so on. You know, maybe this digger might have been at the grain shed at some point, parked up, stored, and then moved on. I do want to stress one question, okay, because it is very important. Is this area, I'll zoom out, so you've got a mine here. I'll do the distance in a second, but this is more important. You've supposedly got a mine here. Don't know what type of mine. You can see shadowing and stuff. I don't know if it's a salt mine because the ground looks salty. It's white, powdery and so on. And there's water as well, and within the area that's salty. That could explain that. But the coordinates, bottom right corner of the screen, this whole area, all the way down to down here. So is this area, such as the grain shed, Dylan's land, and so on, does Dylan own the land up here as well? I'll just flip the screen so you can look back. Does Dylan own this land or rent it out? Here. Which links on to way over there in the distance where the grain shed is. If so, that makes sense. It's one of Dylan's pieces of equipment, or one of Dylan's workers' equipment. If it's another farm hand, another farm owner that owns this land here, then it's like, does it rule out the idea that the digger, the yellow one within this area, was used way over that way? Was it northeast, south? Yeah, maybe it could rule it out. But then again, depending who's responsible, it could be a suspect. The suspect. If the suspect is known for stealing things, then this isn't going to be anything different. As for keys, though, I'm still wondering, you know, okay, Dylan and his vehicle normally wouldn't lock it. Where would his keys be, though? Would they be on him at all times? That's a question. As for all the other farming equipment, the tractors, if there's trucks, other ones, diggers, quad bikes, where are all the keys stored at? Are they just left dangling in the ignition of the vehicle, the transport? Or are they on a key hanger in a building on Dylan's land? I'm just interested, because were certain keys taken at a certain point, at a certain time? Could you tie that in if there's a missing pair of keys associated with a certain vehicle? Let's say the keys to a digger are missing. You find digger track marks in the wash that could tie together. Is it around the same time as when Dylan went missing? Possibly. Well, starts to fill in possible blanks, doesn't it? So, quite a few things to take in mind and process. Leave your thoughts in the chat about those points or a singular one. What do you think? Now, I want to link back to the measurement. I don't know how accurately to do this, to be fair. Do it there. What I want to do is measure the distance from here to the wash, okay? Zoom out a bit. There we go. I mean, it depends if it follows dirt roads or just goes literally off-road. It might have a certain route in mind. But it's about 4.42 miles. Let's just really round it up to 5 miles. Once again, the number 5, just like how it's 5 miles from the grain shed to Dylan's trailer, and it's 5 miles from the wash to where the digger's found at the mine. Interesting. So with that in mind, it's not too far, so the vehicle would probably travel over that way. Now, in total, how much is it to the grain shed? 5 miles, could round it up to about 6 miles. Still reasonable. You got to take in mind the movement and the speed of the vehicle used. If it's a digger, it's going to be fairly slow, right? I might be wrong. There might be faster diggers or the smaller diggers. I've got to be careful how I say that word so I don't slip on the tongue. Providing they're not, well, if they're smaller, they could be a bit faster and agile. All these little questions to take in mind. So, my opinion on the situation, you've got track marks within this wash or so, okay? Within this wash, track marks. It does follow and run in parallel to certain key points, such as the phone ping and the grain shed. It goes on the way to the grain shed. There just so happens to be a digger up this way, right here. I said, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like an excavator of some sort. That could have been used, stolen or not, and driven over in that direction. Now, I'm going to try and do a little reenactment, okay? So let's pretend someone's got into the digger, okay? You're looking at what's present. There's, I don't know if you call them mountains, but it looks pretty raised, that ground there, doesn't it? So it's not going to be driving over that, no. It's on a bit of a downward slope, and there is a pathway. So, whoever gets in, starts driving down this winding dirt road, going in and out where the ground becomes red. You can see the elevation now, can't you? So, suspect carries on driving down this way, eventually reaches this crossroad, or dirt road if you call it that. Yes, it's a proper dirt road, nice and straight. Might even cut corners and cut across the land. Heads in this direction possibly, let's just say. And then goes over that way, bends round. Make sure I'm in line with everything. Carries on going over the train tracks. Are they train tracks? I can't remember if they're train tracks or not. It looks a little bit blurrier from this angle. And then cuts across at some point over here. So there's a bit of distance to cover. And then eventually, they're the train tracks, okay? What's that white thing? The hell's that? I don't know. Eventually crossed over the train tracks, which would likely be here because of that dirt path going over it. But then again, can you actually drive over that or not? It doesn't look like you can. Is it like a board or a crossing? I can't seem to make that out. I can't really see. Ah, there we go. There we go. There's a crossing right there from the looks of it. So the excavator could have gone over that and then turned and went right up that way, going on this winding path, okay, turn around slightly, coming down this way, passing the water hole there, and then, here we go, coming down to this section, as I said, where it can flood, turning left and going through the wash, which bends in and out, as you can see, keeps on going, passing by the final phone ping over in that direction, and slowly but surely approaching that yellow marker. As I said, I don't have the precise coordinates to which spot the track marks were found in, but if you see it in part of the wash, it's continuous and it continues back the way it came and the way it was going. Okay? It carries on driving down here. And at some point, does it connect to any pathways? Well, there's a slight pathway there. It could just do a shortcut. If the ground becomes more elevated, you can get out of the wash at a certain point. Cuts across, goes to the grain shed. And then what? Digs something up to hide somebody, and something's buried here. Or even near this rubbish pile where there's a mound. It could have been unearthed, disrupted, and something buried underneath, and then everything put back on top. What do you think? Do you think a excavator made a long journey from somewhere up here, north, and headed south, back down, passing the water hole, going through that wash where the yellow marker is, eventually coming out and reaching the grain shed? Do you think that's the case? Now, this is the thing. Another question what we've got to ask ourselves is, what about the vehicle itself? Where is that? Was any vehicles found around the grain shed, which could be a digger, an excavator, an ATV, something like that? If so, then it could reinforce the idea that it made its journey to the grain shed, right? Could it be the reverse way round? Like there was already a vehicle within the area on Dylan's land, and then someone drove it forwards heading north, and then heading northwest past the wash, going through it, and then onwards elsewhere. And that's why you've got, even though the time is not in sync, you've got something like that parked here. Is this a possible location where Dylan could be? Using external faraway land, which might be in use or not, and creating some kind of burial. If there are mine shafts within the area, which some people have suggested, could Dylan have been put down one and then the mine shaft filled in? You know what I'm saying? Because with Kenny Veach, at one point there was a lot of talks about Kenny being in a mine shaft, it collapsing in on itself, or Kenny being in a cave and it collapsing in on itself. So you would never know. You wouldn't see anyone, and that's it. Could it have been done this time, but not natural, more man-made? That's what we've got to ask ourselves. One question I have is,
does the final phone ping, the supposed one, as you saw on the screen as I passed by it a few times, near to the wash, does that play any part, have any link associated with those track marks at some point? Like, what am I thinking, or what am I trying to come to conclusions with? Okay, there is footage of people exploring the area, and maybe much earlier on where people were closer to the spots of Dylan's land, which is probably now restricted because of the investigations going on. Lance and Kimber, they're over that way, like maybe in Montello, around that place. Scott Natal is further away as well, so they don't get in trouble. All makes sense. Does anyone know, has anyone explored the area, the land where that phone ping was dotted? That area there. The reason why I say that is, were there any track marks found there? Feel free to let me know in the comment section in the chat. If that's the case, that could tie in with the digger, the excavator, or some kind of vehicle going through the wash over that way, eventually coming out and going towards where that phone ping is. Where could Dylan be? Well, there is one idea, and it might seem a little bit, I don't know, over the top, okay? So let's say at the grain shed, there is a digger present, or nearby there is one. Confrontation, Dylan gets hurt, killed, and then where's he put? Well, there's not been really any other vehicles to talk about car-wise in terms of tracks, proper tracks. If Dylan's vehicle supposedly never moved, still over that way, okay? That's for something else, I guess. But if there's a digger nearby, you know, if you've got the handle, you know, the attached to the arm of the digger, how big is that? Because you've seen it, funny videos on YouTube, even videos on YouTube of people being rescued during a flood. People climb into the digger hand, the excavator's hand, and sit in it or stand in it. Could Dylan have been dumped in it, the arm raised up so he doesn't roll out, and then driving the digger through the wash, going through, eventually coming back up out of the wash, over that way, west, and then going to that zone where the final phone ping supposedly was, and then burying Dylan there? That's just another theory, okay? That theory can be eliminated if people have been in that area, as I said, where the phone ping was, and there's no track marks, and there's no disturbance to the land, then it can be ruled out and debunked, okay? So make sure, or feel free to let me know your thoughts and what you know, because that will help and be appreciated, okay? What do you think of the mob crew's idea that some kind of vehicle was on the way to Dylan's grain shed? What would be the reason or purpose for that, though? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like right at the scene of the crime. But then again, you know, things can happen pretty close and in obvious areas, so obvious that you probably wouldn't expect at times. There's that in mind. I don't know if it ties in with the same thing, but I saw that one quote, something about Candice at one point saying it was staring at us in our eyes or something all this time. I don't know what she's referring to there, whether it be a particular individual responsible or the location. It's been staring at us this whole time. It's right here. This is Dylan. This is where Dylan is. What's she referring to? Is that a suspicious line to be using? Is she hinting at something? Let me know your thoughts. Now, is there anything else I can add in? Well, it was either used to carry Dylan, the excavator, and then used to dig up a hole and then bury Dylan. Or it was just simply used to dig a hole and then bury Dylan without having to pick him up in between. So that's the way I see it. And I do think it's a digger, an excavator of some sort. If it was any other vehicles, who would it be? Now, I'm not in the correct focus to do the analysis right now because it's jumping on from one thing to another, okay? But I have heard some stories here and there in recent time about Chase Venstre being within the area near to Sun tunnels on like quad bikes or something, some kind of off-road vehicle. Could those track marks be responsible at the hands of Chase Venstre going through the wash, eventually coming out and then going over to the Sun tunnels direction? Let me know what you think about that. If you'd like to see a video around that possibility, along with some other talks with what Sunshine has said, feel free to let me know down below, okay? And I can try and do a map analysis of that. So, yeah, it could be Chase Venstre. Do you think anyone else is responsible, and why and who? Because at the end of the day, the area is quite vast, it's open, pretty desolate and quiet, so who else would be going about in that area? And why choose the wash? Why are people driving through the wash? Is it easier to drive through? Is the ground smoother? Is it? Or were they just trying to go a discreet way so it's a bit lower down, slightly out of sight? Let me know what you think. And, you know, I don't know if there's any ways you can track back or look at the dates of when it could have occurred. You know, if it happened after Dylan's disappearance, and I mean after, maybe it's not as suspicious. If it happened just before Dylan was reported missing, or maybe just after, then it could be more suspicious. Just like with Jim Brenner disposing or passing on his firearms to Don H. abruptly out of nowhere, whilst Dylan's reported missing. So you can come up with like little links there, right? Okay. And just to link back to that previous question, depending what vehicle was used, was it returned back? Is there a missing vehicle? Is there missing keys to a vehicle? Does anyone know anything about that? We've heard that the key fob, am I saying that correctly? The key fob of Dylan's car have not been found. Then they have, then they haven't, then they have, then they haven't. Put that aside, is there any more key fobs, any more keys to any of the vehicles missing, along with the vehicle itself? Because that could explain these track marks, possibly. So, I think that concludes that. I just want to go back to the map, okay? Just to maybe add to a previous theory in my last video, okay? Because Bungee Cord, credit to him, came out with a better worded concept of what could have happened. And I'll just add the odd point or two from what they said to what I've previously set up, okay? Let's just return back to Google Earth now.
So here we are, Dylan's living quarters area. Now, as I said in the last video, the one thing I couldn't get my head around was I can understand Dylan walking back from somewhere because he's done that previously. The mother said it herself. But I couldn't get my head around, like, surely he wouldn't walk 5 miles to the grain shed and then 5 miles back whilst his vehicle remains in one spot and doesn't move. Well, what about the grain truck itself? For some reason, I was always under the impression the grain truck remains on site near to the grain shed. But there's been talks, and like what Bungie said, the grain truck could have been parked up here near Dylan's trailer alongside his Ford F-150 Raptor. So, Dylan could have got into the grain truck because that's what he was supposed to be doing. Got in it, drove up that road, all the way up there. I'll just speed it up, okay? Hurry up. Got to this crossroad, turned, got down to the gate, okay, which is here, and then got to the grain shed, and then basically parked the grain truck in the grain shed, okay? If that's the order of events, at what point did he make the phone call? Was it once he got to the grain shed, as he got out of the grain truck and said, I'm just going to park it, then got back into the truck, then parked it? Or did he make the call back at his living quarters and then set out to do the job? Okay, and that's what we've got to ask ourselves. So yeah, he parks it up. We know his vehicle, his original vehicle, his main vehicle, the F-150. is parked over that way, east. He's managed to get here in the grain truck. And then what does he do? He walks back on one journey, which is 5 miles, which is doable, which is what he's done before. So just a small little detail like that, common sense, but you might not always pick up on it immediately. And it just provides a little bit of better understanding. At least for me it does, okay? It fills in that little blank for me, because I was like, no, he wouldn't be walking there and back. It's just not practical. You know, you got all these vehicles around, why not use them? So, yeah, let me know what you think. You know, was the grain truck parked at Dylan's trailer previously, or did he leave it on site only? Okay. I think whilst we're here, let's just see if there's any other vehicles on site that could be used or responsible for the tracks in the ground. Maybe the quality might not be the best to see. Is that a tractor? I'm not sure. That's one of those attachments, trailers for scraping the ground, I think, or for planting. There's not really much going on, to be fair. That looks like a combine harvester. That looks like literally a truck, the way it is, without a trailer. They look like trailers. Wait, why does that look like a person? What? Wait, that is so weird. It probably isn't. That is so weird, that. Let me know what you think. Doesn't that look like a person? Like the shadow of a person where it's projected onto the ground. You know, you've got the 2 legs, the torso, and a little bit of the head area. And there's something else there. And something else there. Are these figures of people? Or is it just rock? It looks too black. Do you know, like when you get the trailer hair? Like that trailer. You see how black it is? Well, that's the shadow casted by the object and the sunlight. So that's why it's that dark. It's a shadow. So what are these objects then? That's so weird. I've only just noticed it now. It can't be a person. You know, from aerial viewpoint, a person's too small to pick up on the maps, right? Too small. That's weird though. Let me know what you think. I only just picked up on it now. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be too many vehicles around to point out. So I know with time things can change, vehicles can be added, moved around. This is not up to date, let's be honest. So yeah, okay. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of my, well, call it my previous theory about where Dylan was at the time and how he got there and back from the grain shed to his living quarters with the use of the grain truck. I just wanted to fill that in because it's only a small point. Anything else going on? And as I was saying earlier, because I might have not shown any images at the time, this land here, coordinates bottom right corner of the screen, tracks wash over that way, yellow marker. Did the vehicle cross over this land? Did it pass through it? Did it disturb any of the ground? Like, is there track marks in this area? If anyone knows, feel free to leave a comment in the chat, because that will help. Okay? Right, so a few things to take in mind. Don't know if you'd call it new breaking news type stuff, but it's like media resurfacing with a new observation, which is the tracks, the primary focus of this video. And as I said, credit to Mob for bringing it up, that point, that observation, that finding previously from their drone footage. Who knows what else will show up with time. This is the key thing you've got to remember. Whilst there are searches ongoing, past, present, and maybe future, mainly the past ones, you know, you think, okay, you've seen it, that's it, let's move on to the next location, the next video, the next hike. No.
what you need to understand is there will be times, there will be moments where previous footage can be very important and key. When someone is out there recording, they're focused on, making sure they don't hurt themselves, focusing on making sure they don't get lost, they know the location, and also holding a device whilst recording and commentating. So they can't take everything in all at once. But with the use of that footage, when people observe it afterwards, people online, on YouTube, viewers, when they watch that footage at the time or at a later date, rewatching it, or a new viewer, they might find something within which the hiker, the explorer, didn't see. It's happened so many times within the Kenny Veach case, from Sean Horlacker's footage to Scott Natal's, Jeff Clark's, Jay Silverheels, and so on, Rayleigh Robbins, all these little findings and weird things showing up, whether it's visual or auditory. Doesn't matter, things have popped up which the hikers who have been in the area have not noticed until they've been told, such as the crystal skull within the mine shaft, one of the biggest mysteries to this date within the Kenny Veach case, and so on. So the same can happen within the Dylan Brown's case. Maybe not as mysterious, but more strange and suspicious, because it's been seen as a crime, this, okay? And I guess this video and what mob crew has demonstrated is a perfect example of all that. Looking back at previous footage and picking up on something. There you go. It's the only way it can be worded. As said, leave your thoughts down below, what you think. On the entire situation, the case up to now, and these track marks. Who do you think's responsible? Who's behind that? Is it suspicious or not? Okay? I'm going to round the video off now, okay? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and goodbye.